and thank you for joining us today. We're here to talk about some really exciting work by the Impact Investing Institute, supported by Schroders Family Office Service. I'm joined today by Bryony Cove, partner at Farrow & Co, and Colin Melvin from Arcadico Partners. So let's start with you, Bryony. Can you introduce yourself and talk about the kind of advice you give families when they're thinking about impact investing?
Well, I'm a lawyer at Farrow & Co, as you've said. I've been in the industry for nearly 30 years now. I advise families on estate planning, but increasingly on their purpose and strategies around their wealth management. Where family offices are involved, there is obviously a degree of complexity to the wealth, a degree of depth to the wealth and size. And so really our role has gone well beyond what you might call normal estate planning.
And what about you, Colin?
So I work at Arcadico Partners, which I founded 7 years ago. We advise investors of all sizes on sustainable investment and stewardship, how to undertake that, implement it, and so on. So it's everything from the largest pension fund in the world, the Japanese government pension fund, right down to family offices, charities, endowments, and so on. So strategy and management advice.
Okay, brilliant. And in your experience, what do you think are the biggest challenges that some of these organisations, and particularly families and family offices, see when they start to think about impact investing?
Perhaps the biggest challenge is the articulation of purpose for a family. Often we start with the what rather than the why within investment, just the very mechanics of investment. And so an ability to think about the why that sits behind the what and connect that to the purpose of the family overall can be quite a significant challenge, but well worth getting right, because it then becomes an enabler for an approach to sustainability investment and impact.
And so you presumably help with crafting sustainable investment policies. What do you think make the sort of key ingredients to writing a really good impact investment policy?
So to consider all investment as having impact is one good ingredient, and to connect it all to the overarching purpose, finding then a golden thread that runs from the purpose through the articulation of objectives and the implementation, the strategy around implementation. So those would be the key ingredients. And to see that there's a lot of good practice out there already. Families starting this work are not doing it in a vacuum. There are many other families that have already gone down this route, and all sorts of other investors of different sizes with investment policy statements.
So, Bryony, you've talked about this idea of the modern trust before. Can you expand on that a bit for us?
Well, so trusts are obviously a very sort of ancient concept, but they have to operate in the modern world. And it's clear to me that actually trusts can be a modern way of holding wealth as long as people can act collaboratively. We do see a lot of litigation around trust matters where trustees and beneficiaries perhaps don't agree, whether it's on distributions to the beneficiaries, but more recently, whether it's on their investment policy. We're seeing the greatest success for clients, and I would like to emphasise the success where trustees and beneficiaries genuinely get to know each other a bit better, and they enter into some sort of dialogue that actually broadens the conversation right out, again, about values and purpose, about what the money was created for, but what it might now, in a different sense, in a newer world, be used for. Is it much greater than everybody had anticipated? And we do see that happening in families. And what is that extra money for, if you like? So I think that the dialogue between trustees and beneficiaries and between any sort of custodian of wealth and the ultimate beneficiary of that wealth, because obviously there are other structures offshore, I think is really, really important. And that them and us approach, slightly patrician approach, possibly very highly informed by whoever created the wealth or settled the wealth into that structure, is really important. The generation that has already come through in their 40s and 50s welcome that dialogue. The generation after that in their 20s and 30s demand it. So getting used to that dialogue between the wealth, maybe custodian, if you like, the trustee, foundation director, whoever it is, and the beneficiaries whose family created the wealth after all, getting a bit more emotional connection between them, I think is absolutely critical to a trust operating in the modern world.
And do you think there is still this sort of perceived contradiction between investing for impact and other fiduciary responsibilities, say preserving wealth or maximising financial returns?
I think that enough has changed that if a trustee or a wealth creator doesn't recognise this is coming, then they're not really paying attention to the sort of wider aspects of why impact investing is a good thing. We tend to feel in the industry as if clients know their own minds around impact investing. And I think there is genuine fear in the industry that it's not our place to actually point out that there's a wider perspective to it. I don't agree with that view. I think it is important as advisors that we have a responsibility to our clients, not only to avoid litigation with, another generation of the family, but also to avoid family conflict generally. Succession is a very precious process. We are now in the middle of the great wealth transfer. For people to say that it's coming is short-sighted. We're definitely in the middle of it, and there are definitely very strong views coming through from the younger adult generations that simply can't be ignored.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And Colin, from your perspective, we know that one of the barriers to more people adopting impact investing approaches is that the quality of advice isn't good enough. How do we there are some great advisors out there, but how do we make sure that there are enough really good advisors that families are getting the right advice?
I think we need some education within the advisor community, and the right sort of education, and people being open to change and develop. We often talk about impact in investment as if it's a new thing. It's not new. It's been around for 10, 15 years in at least. And so we need to come towards this and recognise it's really just part of our jobs as advisors and investors. Also to recognise that impact arises in different ways. It's not just a venture capital activity, the allocation of new capital with the intention of doing something additional, which is the traditional interpretation or definition. It's there in every conversation you have as a principal or as an investor. You can influence people and change behaviour, and that's impact. And so we need to recognise impact right across the spectrum of investment.
And I think you've both talked in the past about collaboration and how, as a family, you can have a lot of impact just by asking your investment managers who work with other clients to report in certain ways or to measure certain things or to invest in certain sectors. Are there other ways you think that families can collaborate or try and expedite this transfer of capital that we know needs to happen?
So I think working together is a very good idea. There are many such vehicles. Families are actually pretty good at this. I've come across lots of groups of family offices looking at and considering how they might make a difference together. We could, of course, do more of that. Sharing specific case studies, stories around success in this area is often very helpful. And not just success, again, in the traditional sense of impact investment, but also success in getting your investment managers to change behaviour, report differently, and so on. So there is a power in that collective, I think, and but more could be done there.
And what about you, Bryony?
I think just to look at the generations in sort of isolation is one way of doing things. I'm a great fan of actually getting others together from a similar generational experience, often cross-cultural, which can be really, really interesting. I think that having the recognition that their voices are being heard is really, really important to those in their maybe 20s and 30s coming through, who may be the grandchildren of the principal, but recognising that there's a sort of generation you might call now gen, who are already in professional roles, often within a family business or the family foundation, or as somebody who is consulted by the trustees, and making sure that their experience of how impact investing can work is properly rigorous, that they have the right tools in order to engage with the whole family, if you like, from the middle, and to really be persuasive of all generations that this is the right way to go. I think that's really important. I think that we must recognise that those people are more and more in control as part of the succession to wealth, and that they need to be given the tools in order to take the family into the next maybe 50 or 100 years.
So what emerging themes are you seeing in the family office and family community that you feel really encouraged about?
We're seeing a lot more discussion in the industry amongst all the advisors around this area. But critically, we're also seeing a lot more families really engaging with it. And I think there is a groundswell building, if it hasn't already built, of people that really feel passionately about the planet, about impact, about their wealth having a proper purpose beyond just supporting the family.
What about you, Colin?
One of the things I've been most impressed by is the ways in which people who were highly resistant to sustainability and in investment and impact are starting to come around to this, to see that it's just part of their jobs, and indeed, I think part of their fiduciary duty, to consider these issues on behalf of those people whose wealth they look after.
Brilliant. Well, thank you both so much for joining us today. Your expertise has been invaluable. Your sort of input to the report more broadly, and today it's really great
Thank you.
to have you both here. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you very much to all of you who are listening to this and watching this video. If you want any more information or other resources around impact investing, please visit the Impact Investing Institute's website.